we got an 8400, so we'd be looking at the web interface of a real 8400 on a network. And you'll see its IP address, and you can try and get to it, but you won't be able to. It has connected to it only a couple access switches, two 2930Ms that we've got on that. So we don't have a large network, but we've got a little example network that we can use. And then we've got a traffic generator down here that's pumping traffic into this little network. The network analytic engine, of course, is within the 8400, and we have a VoIP agent, a voice over IP monitoring and root cause analysis agent that's loaded onto that, that's running within that analytic engine. And then we'll just be using my laptop here with the web browser and just browsing into the 8400 interface to see what's going on there. You know, what we, kind of the scenario, what this VoIP agent does is, one of the things it does is it monitors the amount of voice traffic going through the network. And so the traffic is, there's a queue for the voice traffic within the 8400, and it's watching the amount of traffic going through that queue. And if there's an anomalous level of traffic going through that queue, then it triggers and tries to figure out why do we have more traffic than we normally would have. So let's see if we can get that running. Let's see. Let me bring my web browser up. You know, I think I'm going to have to run it from back here. So, so this is the web page. So let me talk about it for a minute anyway.
Do you like the internet?
This is a web page for this VoIP agent. And as I said, it's just a Python script, but we auto-generated this web UI. And we've got a few things in it. There's some details about the agent, its name, its version, and things like that. There's a status of it. It happens to be in the normal state at this point in time. And apparently its status changed 19 minutes ago, so we know it changed recently. Scripts can have, these agents can have parameters. And you could maybe change the parameters to what you'd like according to your network or needs. And then at the bottom here, we have a list of the alerts. And so whenever the agent has determined something's wrong, and it needs to do something, it'll be duly noted here with a timestamp and whatnot. And then up here we have the time series, a view into the time series data that this agent is monitoring, along with some events. We can see these little icons at the top here indicating that some events occurred in it. This one is monitoring the traffic levels. And so we see that the traffic levels were fairly low here, and they started spiking up quite high, actually, at one point. And it actually triggered this red triangle, which indicates that a condition was met, and the script started trying to determine what the root cause of this anomalous level of traffic occurred, you know, what the cause of it was. So let's, and so when it did that, of course, what were we trying to do? We're trying to get to root cause. And so we've got an example here of where the agent has been monitoring and has detected an anomaly, and now it's going to help us get to root cause. And so let's see what it did for us here. So if I come down here and click on this triangle at the top here, we're going to see that it actually went through and it did a number of things, and it said it's a little critical, and then it did two analysis, and let's go look at those to see what it did. And let's click on this other one here. You know, one of the things it did was it did a service impact analysis. And so what it did, and we talked a little earlier about the agents being able to do REST calls out to neighboring systems. What the agent did on the 8400 is it made a REST call out to the 2930s and queried its IPLSA results at that point in time. Now think about this. What happened was we saw an anomalous level of traffic occur in the network, right? And so we want to see, is that impacting my clients, right? And this is when the traffic level is high that this action is being taken, right? It's making these REST calls while the traffic's high. And it collects information. Of course, it's making a REST call, so it gets nice structured JSON data back, and it can create an HTML document that gets posted, right, or gets saved within the system, and that's what we're looking at is the document that the agent created. And you can see it has a summary the neighbor access switch IPLSA results, and you can see that they're actually amazing. You can't get any better than that. So it turns out, actually, in our demo, it's pretty hard to overwhelm an 8400 with two 2930s and a little traffic generator. So you wouldn't expect to be able to like affect the IPLSA here in this situation, but in a real case, you may have actually some impairment, lower MOS scores and so on.
So I've got a question for you around this.
Yeah, go for it.
With your current customers, as to how you're integrating this into current network operations shops, how are they taking this and integrating this into, obviously, everybody you're dealing with probably has monitoring systems and various ways of how they assess the state of the network. So is this, you've got an alarming action here, is there also, are you sending that to a legacy alarming, like a monitoring system, and integrating in that fashion? I guess my question is, how do you see that fitting in existing network ops shops, and what do you put this on a big screen? Do you integrate it and dump it to another system? How do you see that fitting into the everyday ops?
Yeah, I think there's several answers, okay? But let me talk first about legacy.
Sure.
So one of the things we made sure we did was we enabled the agents to be able to generate syslog messages, because that is a very common method for information being conveyed up to a central network management system, right? And so these agents can send syslog messages. These agents actually determine the text within those syslog messages, and so you can have an agent create a syslog message that looks the same as what they're used to seeing if they know how to, ingest those types of messages, or it can be a custom message according to conveying the parameters that you want up to that system. And so you can integrate with existing network management systems using kind of these legacy protocols, right?
But the difference here is the syslog message is, it's an amalgamation of you've tested for all these conditions and found X result, rather than I'm just firing off an interface was down. That's the differentiator between that type of a syslog message.
There's a huge difference. There's a huge difference, right? There's a huge difference between simply taking data, sticking it in a packet, and sending it up somewhere, right? Whereas this system, the agents themselves are looking at it, analyzing it, and then constructing some higher level information that can then be conveyed up to a central management system.
Gotcha.
But I think the key point I wanted to make is that we support these legacy communication protocols like syslog, so that you can integrate this new technology with your existing technology. So I think that's the key point there. But I think your point's even better in that not only are you getting just raw data, but you're getting data that has been, there's been some analysis to it and some intelligence applied to it before that information's set up, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
This is a really important point. So most systems just stream telemetry, right, to some sort of collector, a NetFlow collector or something. And then there's an analytics engine, some other piece of software package that's been purchased and integrated, blah, 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 maintained, that is trying to figure out after an event what might have happened. What you're seeing with NAE is, in real time, it's detecting threshold crossing alerts for some of the old SP people in the room, right? TCAs, and then taking programmatic actions. And you can the customer's actual NOC can update, create new scripts. You can watch for conditions you want. You might want to watch for transceiver flaps because you've had an issue with a bad batch of transceivers in your career, whatever it happens to be, right? Spanning tree loops, route changes. You can set scripts on the box, agents on the box, to monitor things that are relevant for your environment, which is kind of a first, right? Rather than just stream telemetry, you can customize the events and the analysis you want. So yes, the some of the legacy integration is possible, but we think when we talk to customers, what flips it over is they can they can start to automate the first 5 or 10 most common steps that they would have taken. Right, so it is a bit of a transformation in terms of ability and capability.
Yeah, and I guess my question was, it's great that you have all this stuff and it's fantastic you have that visibility. What is it that prompts you to go look at it? What is it that prompts you that I have a problem and I don't know if it's, are they dedicating a whole screen to the core, which I could see you doing, putting a screen up for your core, or the syslog forces you to go look at
send a text message. I actually, one of our engineers did a demo for us. We didn't put it in here today, but when an interface flaps in the lab, he calls his Google Home interface and turns on all the lights in his house, right? I mean, you want to wake up your whole networking team, do it. If you can create, if there's a REST API available on a web service, you can invoke it from the script.
To tag on that a little bit, and specifically on that, is we've got this, it says dashboard right there, and we've got, can you build dashboards, and can you also do role based on this? Because if I want to throw it up on a screen and say, we're going to look at the core all day long, that's what the screen's dedicated to, but I want it to be read only. I don't want someone to go over to that laptop that's displaying that, and then go, oh, I can go and do things.
Yeah, let's add some VLANs.
Yeah. We want to have it a display mode only, but also controllable dashboards that we can represent onto various, different screens and platforms.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about having a full programmable access into the system is that you can create those web pages, right, that monitor these things. So what we built in the 8400 is I was kind of working my way up. There's the legacy stuff, got that, right? Then on Box, you've got a web UI, and it'll have a dashboard. The overview actually shows the status of the agents, right? And you can drill down and look at their details. So you could be looking at the overview page of the 8400 if you wanted to dedicate a screen to that, right? Mm-hmm. But you can also create your own web pages that use that programming interface, that REST interface, to populate whatever display you wanted for those purposes, right? So I think you've got a number of choices in existing tools, the built-in tools, and then also using that interface to do higher level things.
Just specific question, just because when it comes to the featuring of that is, how configurable are the refresh cycles on that particular data?
So you have two options in terms of accessing the programmatic interface, the REST interface. The one is to poll it, to actually just request the data and get it back.
REST, I've got that, but if I've got it sitting there as a web-based dashboard that's showing on screen, do I wait until there's a complete state change, or I want this thing to be refreshing the screen every 5 seconds, every second, every 15 minutes, depending on what the thing happens to be?
Yeah, this I'm not sure exactly what the options are to refresh, but I know that it'll do like every 5 seconds. I know it'll do that.
It's about every 5 to 10 seconds.
Okay.
On a refresh.
Yeah.
Just because I have seen some things like, you want to refresh, you got to go hit the F5.
No,
not doing that.
Like if you're looking at the time series database, you can click on the live icon there, and then it's auto refreshed.
Perfect. Very cool. Yeah. Thank you.
And then in the same way, even if you don't have that, these events, if a new event occurs here, it'll show up in the event log also.
There's the one concept.
You don't have to refresh. Yeah.
But I'm looking at how I would directly be using this in the data center to be monitoring these things, and that's exactly. I know that would be the question they'd be asking me is, how often does this thing refresh? How am I going to put this up on a screen? I don't want our network compromised so we could have it, look pretty for people popping by.
Yeah, and the agents can run under different RBAC privileges as well, right?
And that's why I was hopeful for that as well. If not, I'd say you need that to happen.
Yeah, that's day one.
Okay, so I earlier I clicked on one of the details of one of these things, and you can see that there's a massive amount of detail that comes back via that REST call, and it's all duly noted here if it was of interest to you. But I think really what we want to do is we want to go look at the root cause analysis, because that's going to be a lot interesting since our WAF scores look great and everything. Actually, what we'd like to know is why did this traffic level pop up? And so what this agent does is it goes and attempts to identify the top talkers contributing to this queue. So we're not talking about who's sending the most traffic into the network. We're talking about who's sending the most traffic that's going into this queue. Right, we want to know what's going in the queue. And so what the agent first does is it looks at the configuration of the quality of service and figures out what traffic is actually going into that queue that I'm monitoring. What is the QoS configuration? And then it goes down and it looks at, for these two switches that are connected to me, or whatever number of switches are connected to it, what are the traffic amounts of traffic that ends up in those queues, how much is coming from each of those interfaces. And then it follows it down into the access switches using the REST interface in our access switches to do the same thing. So it actually sets a classifier up on those edge ports and pauses for a few seconds to let the hit counts hit, right? And then goes back and reads them to figure out, okay, how much traffic is coming from each of these things. And what it identified two clients here that are generating an anomalous level of traffic going into this queue. And you can see information about their IP address and their MAC address. So the agent was able to collect that information. And it talks about the access switch and the port that client is connected to. So we know information about the client itself. We know where it's connected. We know how that switch is connected up into the 8400. And then we've got some information about the amount of traffic that they're actually putting into that queue at that point in time. You can see that there's a lot of traffic from one of those clients there.
How is anomalous traffic defined?
In this script, it's looking at, well, so there's a number of ways you can do it, right? And I think in this script we actually have a threshold where you set a threshold, but we have other scripts that actually do machine learning and develop a baseline profile and then watch for deviations from that.
I
right?
was hopeful for both those options, so that sounds perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, and so let me show you a little more. So look at the details for one of these, and so these are the hit counts for this particular client that was on this axis switch that's generating all of this traffic going into the queue on the 8400 and causing this anomalous level of traffic. And you can see that actually it was all. What have you got here, Scott? What have we got?
Yes, we have a bunch of traffic from coming in on Q3 that it's getting remarked into that voice queue.
Now, one of the things, so we're working our ways through this, so we've got some information actually. We should maybe back up for a second and kind of think about what we've got so far in terms of information that this system's helped us with. The first thing is the first thing is it showed us a graph. And this is kind of interesting because when you look at this graph, you say, it's been low for a long time. It's not like a gradual increase and then finally we got to where we hit some threshold or something like that. Actually, it was slow and then suddenly it spiked up. That's interesting. It spiked up. It wasn't a gradual increase. So it isn't like just more people are using voice over time. More clients got added incrementally or something like that. Suddenly there's a spike. So that's interesting. Got that piece of information. And then we went and looked at the service impact analysis. Wasn't bad enough that's good. But then when we looked at the top talkers, we realized there's two clients. Actually, they're contributing most of the traffic into this queue. And it happened suddenly and then went away. The last thing that we see, there's this diamond icon there too. I talked earlier about how the configurations changes are correlated with the time series database, and this diamond icon indicates that a configuration change was made at that point in time. And so let's go look at that. What do you do first when something happens? You say, what changed, right? What changed? And it looks like something changed. So why don't we check that out?
Tells us that. Yeah.
We talked about the diffs. I think we were asked in a previous session about do you have diffs available and whatnot? And actually we do. That's what we're seeing right here. Is we're seeing that before this there was a configuration, and then at this point in time somebody changed the configuration, and we actually have captured and are displaying here a diff of that configuration change. And Scott, what did you do? You changed the, the QoS. I can see that.
We went and put DSCP 24 into Q7 for some reason.
Yeah, so you remapped 24 into my voice queue.
Yeah, I really wanted SIP traffic to go through reliably.
So taking this example right here, we see a configuration change and an engineer's broken a network, which never happens. And you can take that and make that a syslog message, and articulate that, hey, there was a config change. Somebody changed the config, and that's, because that would be an interesting and valuable thing to be able to see, because oftentimes we'll go look for it and we'll diff a config, but it's a very manual process. Yes. I mean, one of the nice things about the agents is that the agents can subscribe to items in the database, and so if a change was made, that agent could become notified of that, and it could take action. It could send a syslog message, for example, right? Yep.
Is any of this extra licensing fees to have this functionality, or is this all part of the box?
That's a product line management question.
So the network analytics engine is included in the base license for the box. This is not extra.
So anything we're seeing here, if I have an 8400, I have this.
You have this, yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
While you're on that, what are the license levels of the 8400? Are there multiple, or is it one?
There's one right now.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, this whole script relies on DSCP values, correct? That's all you're really looking at. You're just looking at what packets are coming through with what DSCP value in the header, and then making your inferences from there.
That's right. It's looking at the configuration, identifying what code points are mapped to what queues, and then using that information then to collect information about the top talkers. Right. So yeah, it's working for the configuration back, into, and then using those to set up classifiers, accumulating hit counts, and going from there. That's exactly right. And so the nice thing about it, though, is that if you change your configuration, the agent doesn't get messed up. You didn't like tell the agent, hey, I put this traffic in the queue, when actually you change the configuration where it does something different. The agent's actually looking at the configuration, saying, I don't, you can say what you want. I'm going to look and see what you did. And then I'm going to use that information then to do my root cause analysis.
Okay, it's more sophisticated than, you've got this hard value set in
That's
the
exactly
script.
right. The agent is actually looking at the config directly and saying, this is what you configured, so I'm going to go check that.
Yeah.
And that's how we found that client sending this traffic that you wouldn't normally see in that queue, right? Yeah. And so this is part of the power of the agent being able to have access to the full configuration in addition to the state information within the system.
So what type of machine learning engine are you running, and is it programmatic to where if someone wanted to train or model, et cetera?
So the learning is implemented in Python scripts, and so you can use what models you want. And this is one of the things I think that I'm looking at personally now, is to see what kind of modules should we incorporate that would make it easier to actually do that learning.